All right, YouTube, we're back. In the past, I've talked about like training intensifiers, structuring your program for a pull day, push day, leg day, upper body day, etc. Never really talked about tracking volume. And that's a common question is like, how much volume should I be doing? There's people that are like high volume advocates, people who are low volume advocates. And the answer is kind of a smoke bomb of like, well, it depends. And there's a few questions I like to ask when it comes to distinguishing or determining how much volume we should be doing. But if I were to give like a Spark Notes answer right away, some things I'd focus on before you start like tracking volume is one, like quality of movement. So make sure that you're doing the movements that you need to be doing with good movement quality. So you're checking the boxes there. Two, make sure you're training in a close proximity to failure. So that's kind of step two. Are we actually training hard? So move well, train hard. Step three would be actually maybe tracking volume to some degree. And in a lot of cases, that's going to be kind of self-explanatory in the sense of what performance is going to look like. So in terms of like strength, how much volume can I maintain quality of that movement? In terms of hypertrophy, my output's going to go down a lot if I'm doing too much volume. So if I'm doing actually sets to failure, I might do set one, set of 8, set 2, set of 6 or 7, set 3 might be 4 or 5. So I've had a steep drop off there. Um, and then in terms of like anything that's power related, jumping related, etc., sprinting, like performance will decrease. So we want high quality reps, high intensity. We want to make sure that we're retaining those and that kind of distinguish how much volume that we need. So first things first, though, I like to kind of ask the question of what are we doing in terms of exercise selection. A barbell deadlift probably won't be the same volume equated as a dumbbell curl in terms of like systemic fatigue. I think we need to kind of compare like, okay, like high skill barbell movements are probably going to be more fatigue than like lower skill isolation movements, as well as looking at like isolation movements for muscle groups versus compound movements training muscle groups. So like a lat pull down versus lat pullover, a chest press versus a pec fly. How are we going to equate those things? I don't really have a straightforward answer for you, but I think it's worth looking at that. Like we can't equate all of these things one to one. But again, we're going to go back to like how well are we moving, how hard are we training. Those two things probably dictate volume the most. In terms of exercise selection, I don't think it's necessarily an excuse to be like, suboptimal. I think it's easier to learn main movement patterns with more simple movements. So more practical setups. So instead of doing a lengthened cuff partial, maybe I do a dumbbell lateral raise to learn the motion of a lateral raise. Instead of a cable press around, maybe I just learn a basic dumbbell or machine chest press, right? Things that are going to be more practical are probably what I'm going to start with. And then we're going to really just focus on quality of movement. So whether it's progressing yourself, progressing a client, step one, kind of make sure we're doing exercises that are making conducive towards our goals, whether it be strength, hypertrophy, etc. All those things will overlap at some point. Make sure we're choosing those exercises to be conducive towards our goals, but also like the big things to make sure that we're just doing them well. Attack quality of movement. That's going to take a while to actually get good at, hammering the basics of movement quality. And then also we're going to be kind of overlapping that with learning to train hard. So retaining movement quality as we train hard. Also just like building an understanding and awareness of where our true failure points are, especially if we're training for hypertrophy and trying to hit like mechanical failure. It's take a long time to retain movement quality and get really good at training hard. And if you focus on those two things, volume will kind of be in a moderate area most of the time. As you get better at those things, volume will drop off. If you're not very good movement quality wise, if you're like a less athletic person or have a hard time with the movement, then we're probably gonna be better off doing a little bit higher volume. So in absence of quality of movement, probably want a little bit more volume. In absence of intensity of movement, probably want a little bit more volume. If we have those things, probably want a little bit lower volume. It's going to be hard to look at like research studies and be like, yeah, I need to do 10 sets a week for biceps or 20 sets a week for quads or whatever. I don't even look at these things because they really don't matter in my opinion. I think a lot of stuff when we get in the gym and focus on these things, it gets a bit self-explanatory. But again, it's like you're an individual, you're not a research study. We're not trying to generalize things onto you. We're trying to find the best approach for you. Step one, move well. Step two, learn to train hard. As we get better at training hard, we might lose a little bit of quality of movement. As we get those hairy reps, we have to kind of get good again at maintaining quality as we get into those hairy reps. Step three, volume at that point should be self-explanatory. So if I had to really track volume, if I really needed to track it, it's like how much volume can I do while maintaining performance, whether it be strength, whether it be hypertrophy outcomes, whether it be more, like explosive power related things. It's like, what does the quality of my movement look like? At what point do I lose quality, or what point do I lose overall output or volume in those interest set? That's kind of a quick run through, bit of a rant there, but you probably don't need to be tracking volume, especially if you're a novice intermediate lifter. And I think if you are a more advanced lifter, it gets a bit self-explanatory. You know, high volume isn't necessarily better than low volume. Depends on what you're doing, how you're doing it. And again, if we're moving well and training hard, we're probably ticking a lot of boxes, and what we're doing outside of the gym is arguably going to be more important: sleep, nutrition, overall recovery, stress management, etc. So hopefully that's a short video. We'll leave it at that. Again, it's not saying that research is dumb. It's not saying that you shouldn't track your volume at all. It's just saying there's probably some bigger rocks to turn over. Let's look at some more like qualitative metrics before quantitative, and then we can dig into the quantitative once we've actually standardized kind of what we're measuring.